Okay, I'm going to continue with part two of our review of the key concepts. And we're going to talk about where do goods and services come from. So we're going to talk about the four, what we call factors of production. Okay. The first of these, most of you should be familiar with, the idea of natural resources, right? I think we all know what those are. Those are the natural materials in the world that we use to produce goods. Things like land, oil, coal, iron, water are all, our forests are all natural resources. I think we all know about natural resources now. Uh, the next one we're going to talk about is labor, right? And when we refer to labor, we're not just talking about people, but it's the effort that people devote to tasks for which they are paid. Okay, so labor would include the medical care provided by a doctor. So a doctor himself is not necessarily the labor; it's the care that the doctor provides. The classroom instruction provided by a teacher, the tightening of a bolt by an assembly line worker. These are all labor. The creation of a painting by an artist. So it's about the effort that the person puts into making something. The repair of a television by a technician. The third of these factors of production is called capital, and capital is talking about anything that human beings create or make that is used to produce something else. Okay, an economy has two types of capital: there's physical and there's human. Okay, so anything that we make to create, anything we create that then in turn helps us to make something else, that's capital. So let's talk about physical and human. So physical capital is this picture. It's machines, it's robots, buildings, right? Anything physical that we create. Now, human capital is a little different. Human capital are the things that we do in order to make ourselves better at creating things. So, for example, we get a college education or training or job experience. So, there's a lot of different things that people can do to become more qualified to do a job, but it's not a physical thing. A college education is not a physical thing that we use. It's an improvement. It's improvement of our minds. So what are the benefits of capital? Capital is a key factor of production because people and companies can use it to save a great deal of money and time. And the benefits of capital make us more efficient. They increase our knowledge. They would make us better at time management and increasing productivity. Okay. Entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs are the fourth factor of production. I think we all know who entrepreneurs are. They play a key role because they're the ones who take the risks and they develop ideas, they start businesses, they create industries, they fuel growth. And I think you know many of the people on this slide, right? So four factors of production. First is natural resources, then labor, then capital. I said there's two kinds of capital, human and physical, and entrepreneurs are the four factors of production. Okay. So let's go back to what we said in Unit 1. We said that we have unlimited wants and needs, but we have scarcity of the goods and services that we desire. Well, why are they scarce? Well, they're scarce because the resources used to produce them are scarce, right? I'd like to believe we have enough trees that we could build all the houses in the world, but we don't. Trees are limited. Oil is limited. Doctors are or the service that doctors provide are limited. All of these things are limited, and therefore we have scarcity of these things, and that's why we can't satisfy all our needs and wants. Okay. So the question is, all right, now I get it. We don't have enough stuff. We want everything, but we don't have enough stuff. I understand where the stuff comes from. It comes from these factors of production. And I understand that the factors of production are limited, right? Okay, so now I want stuff, but I can't get everything I want. So the question is, how do we make decisions? Okay, how do countries and people and economies decide what to produce? Okay, and so that is part 3. which we'll cover now. All right. So every nation or every economy makes three big decisions, right? So if you look at the graph on the right, you have unlimited wants, you have unlimited resources, limited resources. You have scarcity, which forces you to make choices. And there's three big choices you have to make. What do I produce? How do I produce it? And for whom do I produce? So let's talk about that. So how does a nation decide what and how to produce? Okay. Well, I'm going to teach you a concept called a production possibilities curve. This is the curve that helps us to understand how we determine what we should produce. And we're going to simplify this curve so it's very easy for you to understand. I want you to imagine a country called Cape Land. And Cape Land is very peculiar because they only make two things. They only make watermelons and they make shoes. And if they take all of their resources and they put all of their resources in the economy, this is all the watermelons and shoes they can make. If they're making 0 watermelons, they can make 15 million shoes. But if they move their watermelon production to 8 million, well, their shoe production goes down to 14 million. If they move their watermelons to 14 million, their shoes go down to 12 million. So you can see that these are the combinations. If you want to make both items, some resources have to go to one, and whatever resources remain go to the other. And those are the combinations you can make. So for example, if I say, how many watermelons can Cape Land produce if they're making 9 million pairs of shoes? I go to here, I say 9 million, and I say, okay, 18 million watermelons. Right? If I ask how many watermelons, if they stop making shoes, well, if I make 0 shoes, I can make 20 million watermelons. It's a little silly, but what's simplification of a concept? I only have so many resources, okay? I can only make 2 things because of the resources I have. So I need to make a choice between the two. How many of one do I make or how many of the other I make? Now, we talked about opportunity cost. We said last lesson that opportunity cost is what you give up. Choosing is refusing. Every time I choose, I give something else up. Okay, so how can we look at opportunity cost? Well, if I go from 8 million watermelons to 14 million watermelons, what happens to my shoes? My shoe goes from 14 to 12. In other words, if I want to gain 6 million more watermelons, I have to lose 2 million shoes. That was my opportunity cost. Okay? If I want to go from 8 to 14, I have to lose 2 million shoes. That is my opportunity cost. Now, what if I say, how about if I move from 14 to 20? So if I go from 14 all the way to 20, right? So I'm making 6 million more watermelons. How many shoes do I give up? Well, I go from 12 all the way down to 5. So I give up 7 million shoes. Okay, so that's how we can use this table to calculate opportunity cost. Now we can also put this table into a graph, right? When it's 0 watermelons are on the x-axis, 0, I make 15 million shoes. When I make 8 million watermelons, I make 14 million shoes. When I make 14 million watermelons, right, which is about here, I make 12 million shoes. So you can see that all I've done is take these points and plot them on a curve, and the curve looks like this. Okay, and we call this the production possibility curve. And it represents the economy. It's basically saying, if I take all of my resources and I put them into the production of the only 2 things I can make, which is watermelon and shoes, this is my possibility of combinations. This is all the combinations that I can make. So this represents the economy when we're using everything we have, right, based on what we're able to do today. All right. The points along the curve, they make up this, we can also call it the production possibility frontier. A frontier is the edge of something. So we're at the absolute edge of what we can do as an economy. All right. Each point represents a trade-off, right? for every time I make, if I want to make 12 shoes, if I want to make, what is 14 watermelons, I can only make 12 shoes. If I want to make 18 watermelons, I can only make 9 shoes. All right. But every point is also means maximum efficiency. In other words, I'm using all the resources I have. So whether I make 12 and 14 or whether I make 9 and 18, I'm using everything I have. So any point here is efficient. Any point is a point of efficiency. So then the question is, well, what if I don't use all my resources? What if I just decide to use some of them and I keep some away? Well, that can happen. That's what we call A. If I made 5 watermelons and only 8 shoes, I have a lot more that I could make, but I chose to only do this, right? This means I am underutilizing, right? I'm operating inefficiently. We can use either term. If I was efficient, I would be here, but right now I'm inefficient or I'm underutilizing. Now, what about this point, B? Well, B is kind of interesting because most of the time in most economies, people want more. We want more. We have unlimited needs and wants. Therefore, we'd like to have B. The problem is we can't get there right now because we don't have enough resources. Okay, so B, as a result, simply cannot be reached with our current resource constraints. We just can't get to B today. It is unattainable or unachievable. Maybe it's a goal or a dream, but we can't get there. Okay. So then the big question becomes, we all want to get to B. We all want to go to B. How do we get there? Okay, that's the big question. And the only way you can get to B is to overcome these restraints. Remember, we have limited resources, so we have to overcome that. So the question is, well, geez, how do companies or countries overcome these limitations? Okay. Well, if your constraint can be really any. So let's just say your constraint is labor. Let's just say you have an aging population. Many countries today have aging populations. Probably in a lot of them in Europe and Japan are particularly getting older. What can you do if you're running out of people? If you're running out of people that are working, you don't have people to produce, right? Well, we can increase immigration, or we can encourage people to have more babies. And indeed, many countries do this. These are just examples of, in Japan, the government actually sponsors speed dating to get people to have more babies. This is an example of Russia. They're giving prizes to families that make babies. So many examples of in around the world of countries that are trying to overcome the constraint in labor, which is an aging population. They also do it through immigration, and I just gave some examples of the importance of immigration in America, particularly to the farming industry. If we don't have immigrants to farm, we won't be able to produce food. So immigration is very important to the U.S. economy also. Now, what about if the constraint is natural resources? And a good example of this is land, right? If we want to produce more and more and more, we need land to do it, right? So one way to do it is you acquire more land, right? And I gave an example in class about what happens in places like Brazil where they need more land for farming, so they cut down trees. They cut down trees, they make farms. They've acquired new land, but there's a cost, right? The cost is it's killing our environment, right? But the reason they're doing it is to grow their economy. They're trying to acquire new land. Another example is improvements in technology, and I've done this, shown you this graph, which basically says in 1950, one farmer could only feed 15 people. Today, one farmer can feed 200 people. Okay, and the reason why is because technology has gradually enabled farmers to get much better yields, which basically means to produce more per small area of land. Okay, and down here are all the different technologies that they had. So technology is also a way to get over these constraints. Now, if your constraint is capital, maybe you have a lack of money or a lack of skills, right? You can invest in education, right? You can seek foreign investments. There's many things you can do to overcome a lack of capital. So let's go back to the production possibility curve. We said that everyone wants to get to B which was outside the curve, but it was unattainable. Well, actually, it is attainable if you overcome your resources. If I can get more natural resources or more capital, or increase my population, better technology, I can move the curve out. Okay? So when an economy does these things, it actually can produce more. It moves the curve out. Okay? And this, by the same token, economies can contract. They can have terrible natural disasters, hurricanes or earthquakes. Like I said, the population can be aging. So a decrease in population or COVID-19 caused a contraction of the economy, right? Loss of land through war or natural disaster. Production due to olding people, the curve can shift in. So when it's shifting in, it means the economy is contracting. And when it's shifting out, it means the economy is expanding because we're overcoming these constraints. Okay, so if a country produces rackets and bats along the PPF, but its factories are poorly run and there's an underutilization of resources, which one is it? I hope you selected A, right? It's beneath the curve. A country produces rackets and bats, it's hit by a hurricane, which destroys many of the larger factories, right? If you have a natural disaster, the economy would contract, it would move in. So B. And here, the country opens up its borders, it gets more immigrants, it has an increased population, so it can make more bats and rackets. So that's an expansion of the economy, or A. Okay, so quick review. A need is something essential for survival. A want, something that people desire, but is not necessarily for survival. Goods, services, physical objects, services are the actions that are provided. These are from the Unit 1, I apologize. Scarcity, the principle that limited amounts of goods and services are available. Especially we have scarcity because we don't have enough resources to fulfill our goods and wants. Therefore, we have to make trade-offs. And opportunity cost is the most desirable alternative. Choosing is refusing. So we have to give up something else every time we make a decision. So we do a cost-benefit analysis, and that was what I showed you last time about people, whether I should wake up or whether I should sleep, hit the snooze button. Right? We do analysis to make decisions. Okay, and decision-making grids is kind of the same. Both of those were examples. And then today we talked about the factors of production, the resources that are used to make goods and services. There's land, right? I apologize. I said land. I should have said natural resources here. I apologize. Natural resources, there's labor and there's capital, right? And in capital, there's physical capital and there's human capital. Just go back. Physical capital is human-made objects, and human capital is the knowledge and skills. Okay, like getting a diploma is human capital. The production possibilities curve is a graph that shows the different ways to use an economy's productive resources. Production possibility frontier is a line on a curve that shows the maximum output. Efficiency is when you're on that line. Underutilization is when you're under the curve, right? You're not using all your resources. And cost is what you gave up. So this was opportunity cost before. And that is it for this review. Thank you.